Good morning, students. So, in the last class, we have discussed the blade, the composition of the blade. That is, composition of the blade will consist of two components. That is, composition of a blade. So here the blade will consist of two components. One is called as the plasma, and the second one is called as the formed and elements. Here first one is the plasma, and the second one is the that is formed elements. So here the plasma will occupies the 55% of the blade is occupied by the plasma, where here it consists of an organic and inorganic substances. The substances, organic as well as the inorganic substances are presenting, where here organic substances are the fatty acids, amino acids, glucose. These are the organic substances, and also it contains the proteins such as globulins, globulins, and also here will containing the albumins are also presenting, where they acts as the antibody. They produce the antibodies for the body. And also here it containing inorganic components are presenting, such as it consists of an inorganic component such as sodium, potassium, calcium, magnesium, phosphates. All these are presenting in the form of an inorganic substances are presenting. Already we have discussed in the last class. Now coming to the second one, the second one is the formed elements. So here the formula in the blade, in blade here the formed elements, it occupies the 45% of the blade will consist of the formed and elements are presenting, and also these 45% of the blade where it consisting, here it is consisting of three components are presenting, components. It consists of three components are presenting. That three components are first one we can call as the RBC, or otherwise we can call as the erythrocytes. And second one is the WBC, or otherwise we can call as the leukocytes. Otherwise we can call them as leukocytes. And a third one we can call as blood platelets. The blood platelets, or otherwise we can call them as the thrombocytes. So these are the three types of the blood components, that is will having the formed elements. They are presenting in the form of three components. One is erythrocytes, leukocytes, and the thrombocytes. So here each one will having the specific role, and their function is having a specific the cells, that is for specific elements which are present in the blood will having the specific role will be presenting. So these three which are presenting will present in the blood and plays a very important role in the blood. One is it helpful for carrying of the blood. It carries the food materials, excretory waste materials, and also some elements will act as the producing of protects the body from against the germs, and also some will be helpful for the clotting of the blood. That means it cannot oozes outside, the blood cannot oozes outside. So within a fraction of seconds here it helpful for the clotting of the blood will be taken place. So these are the each one will having a specific function is presenting, and how these will be plays an important role in the blood. Now we'll discuss that one. Now coming to this the first one, that is the RBC, or otherwise we can call them as the erythrocytes. So here the RBC, what is RBC means, we can call them as the red blood corpuscles. Red blood corpuscles. We can call them as red blood corpuscles, or otherwise erythro means a red, sides means the cells. So the cells which are in red in color, then such type of cells are called as the erythrocytes, or red blood corpuscles. So these red blood cells, why they are red in color means, here you are having the respiratory pigment, the respiratory pigment, that is we can call as the hemoglobin. The respiratory pigment hemoglobin is dissolved in the plasma of the blood. It is dissolved in the plasma of the blood, so that here it appears the red color. So this type of cells are called as the red blood corpuscles. So here the red blood cells, corpuscles, are RBC and erythrocytes due to the presence of red color that are dissolved in the plasma of the blood. Hemoglobin is dissolved in the plasma of the blood. We can call them as red blood cells and erythrocytes. Here in our body, here in erythrocytes in adult, the red blood cells are with presence of 4.5 to 5.5 millions of cells for cubic millimeter. These are presenting. That means in the average adult will consist of 4.5. Here 4.5 to 5.5 millions of the red blood cells per cubic centimeters, cubic millimeters that blood cells are present in our body. And if you see in an early, that means a young newborn baby, in a newborn baby, here will consist of 6 to 7 millions of cells per cubic millimeters. These are presenting in a newborn baby will consisting a more amount of the red blood corpuscles are presenting. Why they are more in number means, here the respiration is taken place, so to supply the oxygen to different parts of the body, here a more amount of red blood cells are presenting in the newborn baby. And also here in the adults, here in the blood here in embryonic stage, there is no, that means the red blood cells are not be presenting the bone, that means the bone marrow is not be presenting. But here in embryonic stage, the liver will produce the RBC, so that here liver we can call as the hemopoietic organ. So here in a embryonic stage, there is no red blood cell, that means bone marrows are not be formed. So when at the time here liver and spleen which are presenting, the liver will synthesize the blood for an embryo for the development up to and bone marrow formations are taken place. So that here liver we can call as the hemopoietic an organ also. Why means here why you liver call as hemopoietic means the liver will produce the RBC in an embryonic stage. So that here liver we can call as the hemopoietic an organ, where here these hemopoietic organ where the liver will be produces, and also here it is natural containing hormone is presenting in our body, that is we can call as erythropoietin. Here and erythropoietin also presenting erythropoietin. So here it is a naturally produced the hormone which synthesize the blood, that is kidneys. Kidney will helpful for the synthesizing of the blood with the help of a hormone. So that hormone we can call as the hemopoietic and hormone, where it is necessary whenever required. This kidney also will provide, the kidney will act as a hemopoietic organ also, where it synthesizes the blood with the help of a hormone called as the erythropoietin. So with the help of this, it is helpful for the synthesizing of the blood. So that synthesizing of the blood we can call as erythropoiesis. The synthesizing of the blood. The synthesis of a blood is called as erythropoiesis. Erythropoiesis we can call as the erythropoiesis. That means the synthesizing of the blood in the body of an organism. This process we can call as the erythropoiesis. That condition we can call as an erythropoiesis. That will. Now coming to this, so here the blood, the red blood cells RBC are an enucleated. These are an enucleated cells, where they are a biconcave in structure, biconcave structures of that one, biconcave in shape, where these are a biconcave in shape, and here all the cell organelles are absenting is taken place. So here enucleated, that means here nucleus is absent in the red blood cells. In matured RBC, here the blood cells are enucleated. Enucleated means here definite nucleus is not be present, nucleus is absent, and also it is a round in shape, it is biconcave in a structure. So that here this RBC will be, which is consisting, will consist of a respiratory pigment. It containing an a respiratory pigment is presenting. That a respiratory pigment which is presenting, we can call this as the hemoglobin. Hemoglobin. So this hemoglobin is dissolved in the plasma of the blood, so that here the red blood cells are red in a color, and also here the hemoglobin which is presenting, it helpful for the absorption of oxygen. Hemoglobin, it absorbs oxygen. It absorbs oxygen and carries to different parts of the carries to different parts of the body. Here it carries the different, that means hemoglobin absorbs the oxygen and that oxygen we can call as oxyhemoglobin. We can call that as the oxyhemoglobin. It is we can call as oxyhemoglobin. These oxyhemoglobin will carry us to different parts of the bodies. Again, from different parts of the bodies, it carries the carbon dioxide. It carries the carbon dioxide in the form of carboxyhemoglobin. In the form of carboxyhemoglobin. In the form of carboxyhemoglobin, it will take place and exits through the lungs, that will be existed, and outside will be taken place. So here it carries the oxygen to different parts of the body. So that here along with this oxygen, here it carries the carbon dioxide also. That means what is in the tissues, what is the carbon dioxide is presenting, that is carried by in the form of carboxyhemoglobin, and through the lungs that is exited and outside of the body. And also here in sometimes if it is carbon dioxide is more affinity to the hemoglobin, so that here it forms a carboamino hemoglobin, where here it may causes it forms into an carboamino hemoglobin, where it is a more affinity, it is a stable compound, where it combines with the carbon dioxide and becomes a stable compound to form a carboamino hemoglobin, where here it is leads to the carboxy, that is carbon monoxide, poisonous conditions also. That means if you for example, if the person are sleeping in the nearby burning positions, what happens here more amount, if it in a closed condition, that means there is no ventilators are not be presenting, here what happens here it helpful for the poisoning of, that means in the form of carbon monoxide condition it is taken place, where it is harmful to the body, where it forms carboxy, that is carbon monoxide, where here it is forms into the poisonous conditions. It is poisonous, it is very poisonous, where here it causing the death of an organism. It leads to the death due to the suffocation. That means amount of oxygen is not available to the person, where here it leads to the, that means that it is more affinity to carbon dioxide at that time, that means in a closed condition, here it leads to the death of an organism that will be taken place in a closed conditions without having any ventilations. So that here due to the suffocation it may leads to the death of an organism that is with a carbon dioxide, when it is affinity with a more stable compound. But oxygen is a less stable compound, where here it is easily dissociates into oxygen plus a hemoglobin when enters into the tissues. And here the oxygen which is present in, that means oxyhemoglobin, here the lifespan of the lifespan of an RBC is 100 to 120 days. Here the lifespan of RBC is 100 to 120 days. After that here after 120 days here that are carried, that means it is dissociated into hemo plus a globin. It dissociates into a heme plus a globin. So a globin is combined with other elements, and a hemoglobin, the iron content, heme means iron, the iron content which is presenting, it is dissociates into the liver. It enters into the liver in the form of a bilirubin. and excreted in the, they excreted in the form of a bile, a pigments that iron is excreted in the form of a bilirubin, it will be an excreted, where here it is dissociates in the liver, enters that hemoglobin, the iron is enters into the liver and excreted in the form of a bilirubin pigments. And also here the lifespan where it is 100 to 20 days, here after the lifespan, here that are entered, that means the red blood cells are the red, dead RBC cells that enters into the spleen. It enters into the spleen, so that here a spleen we can call as the burial ground, burial, a ground of burial ground of an RBC, or otherwise we can write a vineyard. We can write a vineyard of an RBC cell. That means when the dead blood cells, the lifespan is completed, here that are enters into the spleen, so that here spleen we can call as a burial ground of the an RBC, and also here we can use the vineyard of the an RBC that is taken place in the red blood corpuscles. And also here in this the red blood cells which are presenting, the increasing number of the red blood cells, the increasing the number of the red blood cells, increasing the number of RBC we can call as polycythemia condition. We can call that as the polycythemia condition. That means here increasing the number of the red blood cells. When it is increased, that means when a physical exercises are taken place, or in a pregnant woman's, here these conditions what happens, these are synthesized, these increase the number of the red blood cells. And also in high yield condition, that means at mountain levels, if they are presenting, then increase the number of red blood cells are taken place. Such condition we can call as a polycythemia condition. And also here the decrease the number of decreasing the number of RBC cells we can call as the erythropenia. We can call that as an erythropenia. So increasing structure we can call as a polycythemia condition, and decreasing the structure of the red blood cells, RBC cells, we can call as the erythropenia condition. And also here the red blood cells are synthesized in the bone marrows. The red blood cells are synthesized in a bone marrow. They are synthesized in a bone marrow. So here they are present in flat bones. In young age, that means in childhood, all bones are helpful for childhood. All bones are synthesize, all bones will synthesize the red blood cells, but when it becomes an adult, here they are helpful for the flat bones, as well as the ribs, as well as the breastbone, and also the hips of the pelvis, that is a pelvis, that means the bones of a pelvis or hips of pelvis, these bones are helpful for the synthesizing the bone, that is red blood cells, when they are in an adult and a childhood stage. But in an embryonic stage, the liver will synthesize the red blood cells, so that we can call them as we can also call them as a hemopoietic and organs. That means hemo means blood, poietic means synthesizing. That means the organ which helpful for synthesizing of the red blood cells, that is called as a hemopoietic organ. So here we can use the word as a liver. Liver we can take in place as the hemopoietic and organ. We can call as a hemo. It is we can call that as a hemo. Liver we can call as a hemopoietic organ. That means in embryonic stage, yet there is no bone marrow or formation is not be taken place. So at the time what happens, that liver will synthesize the red blood cells, so that here we can call that as a hemopoietic an organ. We can call that as a hemopoietic an organ. So this is where the characteristic features of the red blood cells. So next, coming to the functions of the blood. Functions of an RBC. Functions of the RBC. So here first one, the transport of the food materials. The transport of the food materials. That means what are the food materials are produced? That means by the food materials which are synthesized, that means that are digested in the alimentary canal. That digested food is transported to different parts of the body. That means that all which is presenting, that is transported in the body. That means here the food which is synthesized, that is it is absorbed in our body, that is in the form of here that will be taken place, that is carbohydrates. That means glucose, proteins, that is glucose, amino acids, and the fatty acids. These are the simplest form of the food materials. So these are transported to different parts of the, they are transported to different parts of the body. These are transporting is taken place by the blood. That means red blood cells will take, so that means the red blood cells will transport the food materials to different parts of the body, that is in the form of transport of the food materials. Likewise, the transport of the gases, the transport of gases. The transport of gases. Here gases means here in the form of the transport in the form of an oxyhemoglobin. It transport the gases to the different parts. That means oxygen is transported to the through the blood. That means red blood cells absorbs oxygen and transport to different parts of the body in the form of an oxyhemoglobin, where it dissociates into oxygen plus a hemoglobin. Again, that hemoglobin will carries the carbon dioxide in the form of carboxyhemoglobin, where this hemoglobin, the carboxyhemoglobin, they are exist to the exit outside outside of the body. That means here oxyhemoglobin dissociates that carbon dioxide will be existed outside of the body in the form of transport of gases. And third one, if it taken place, the transport of the excretory waste materials, transport of excretory waste materials. So here they transport the waste materials, that is in the form of nitrogenous waste, and also here they transport that means the nitrogenous waste materials are transported, and also the toxic substances which are presenting that are transported to the liver. And also here it also carries the waste materials by the skin, where it produces the skin. That all waste materials are carried to different parts of the body, where from the different organs they excreted the waste materials which are secreted in our body. That is especially in the form of nitrogenous waste materials which are secreted, that are transported, and also carries like a carbon dioxide also will be carried. It is also a waste material where it carried from a tissues to the body, to the lungs, where through the lungs they are secreted outside. And also here the waste materials which are secreted by the that are carried by the kidneys and enters into the kidneys. Through the kidneys they are eliminated outside from the body. Likewise the toxic substances which are presenting that are entered into the liver, where that are excreted outside by the liver through the kidneys, that are excreted and outside through the kidneys. Likewise the skin, that means the water which is presenting that nitrogenous waste material salts which are produced from the water, that are also excreted by the skin, that are taken place by the transport of an excretory waste materials. And also here that also helpful in the transport of hormones. That means here hormones which are synthesized, hormones are which are secreted, that are secreted by different organs. That organs will be passes through the blood and stimulates the target tissues. Hormones which are secreted by the organs, they are stimulated by the blood only. That means the blood will carries the hormones to the target tissues in the form of a target tissues or target organs or target tissues. They through these target tissues they are transported and stimulates the organs which are present in our body. So that here we can call them as the endocrine glands. That means here ducts are not be presenting directly, they passes through the blood. That blood will stimulate the organs and helpful for this stimulating of organs which they secretes their secretions, that is due to the hormones. And also lastly, if you see here the maintenance of it, helpful for the maintenance of a temperature also, that is helpful for transport for the it acts as a homeostasis. It also maintains the homeostasis. That means here the blood will maintains a constant temperature, will helpful for the maintenance of a constant temperature, where this temperature will blood will passes the temperature to different parts of the body and maintains a constant temperature in our body only. So that here it acts as a homeostasis or hemostatic an organ, where it maintains a constant temperature is maintaining in our body of a human. So that we can call them as a homeoderms, or otherwise you can call them as the warm-blooded organisms which maintains a constant temperature that is carried by the blood to different parts of the body. So these are the various functions which are performed by the red blood corpuscles. So here these are the functions which are taken place by the red blood corpuscles. So next we'll coming to the next one, that is WBC. Now coming to the the second one, that is the red blood cells. Sorry, the second one is white blood cells, RBC, or otherwise you can call them as the leukocytes. The second one is the WBC, or otherwise you can call as the leukocytes. Here these are called as white blood corpuscles. White blood corpuscles, or otherwise we can call them as leuco means white, sides means cells. So the cells which are in white in color, so such type of cells are called as the leukocytes, or otherwise we can call them as the white blood corpuscles, where here these are white in color. White means here hemoglobin is not be presenting due to the absence of the hemoglobin. These cells are white in structure. So leuco means white, cytes means cells. The cells which are in white in color, so such type of cells are called as the leukocytes, where here these are will be presenting a few number to the thousands of the cells are presenting. These are that means these are having the few cells, that is it is from less than that of white blood, that is 3.5 to 4.5 millions of cells are presenting for cubic millimeter. Here these are having very less when compared to the red blood cells, but here the white blood cells which are presenting, they are plays a very important role in the blood. Why means here they fight, they protects the body, from harmful germs. That means the antigens, the foreign particles which are enters into our body, that are protected by the white blood cells, or we can call them as leukocytes only. So here these are very an important role. They protect our body from the harmful germs. So that we can call them as white blood corpuscles. And here the lifespan of these white blood cells are a few hours to a few days. Here the lifespan if you see the lifespan of the white blood cells are here few minutes or a few minutes to a few hours. It should be a few minutes to the lifespan is a few minutes to a few hours. The lifespan is presenting of a white blood corpuscles. Why means they protect our body. And also this formation of the white blood cells, that formation of white blood cells is called as leukopoiesis. That means the formation of the WBC are leukocytes. The formation of white blood cells, we can call that as the leukopoiesis. Here we can call this as the leukopoiesis. And also if it is increasing the number of, that means if increase increased the number of the white blood corpuscles we can call as the leukopoiesis, so we can call as leukocythemia. We can call as leukocythemia, or otherwise we can call that as a blood cancer also. It is we can call as a leukocythemia, or we can call as a blood cancer. That means increasing the number of the white blood corpuscles, then we can call as a leukocythemia, or we can call that as the blood cancer, where here increasing the number of the blood WBCs, that is decreasing the number of the WBC, then this condition we can call as the leukopenia. We can call as a leukopenia, not leukopoiesis. That means the decreasing the number of red blood cells we can call as a leukopoiesis. And some white blood cells which are presenting they comes outside, oozes outside across the capillaries of the blood cells, then this condition we can call as a diapedesis. What is a diapedesis? What is that? Means oozing outside or seizing, oozing outside across the capillaries, then this condition we can call as the diapedesis. Diapedesis means coming outside across the capillaries. This condition we can call as the diapedesis. And increasing we can call as leukocythemia, and decreasing we can call as leukopenia, and increasing the formation of WBCs we can call as leukocythemia, that is leukopoiesis. And here the white blood cells which are presenting here, white blood cells are classified into here based on the presence of the cytoplasmic granules, Here the white blood cells, that means the white blood cells are classified into two types, that is based on the presence of the cytoplasmic granules. The white blood corpuscles are classified into two types. One you can call as the granulocytes, and the second one is called as agranulocytes. So here these are classified based on the presence of the cytoplasmic granules. The white blood cells or leukocytes are classified into two types. One we can call as granulocytes, and second one we can call them as agranulocytes. So what are that granulocytes and agranulocytes? Now we'll discuss. So now coming to the types of the RBCs. So here RBCs based on the presence of the cytoplasmic granules, these are classified into the granulocytes, granulocytes, and second one is agranulocytes. So here granulocytes, what are granulocytes? Means in the cytoplasm of the the cytoplasm of the RBC, sorry, not RBC, in the cytoplasm of the WBC, if the granules are presenting, then such type of WBCs are called as granulocytes, where these granulocytes are classified into three types. These are classified into three types. So what are these three types? Means first one we can call as the acidophils. Second one is basophils, and the third one is the neutrophils. So here, based on the presence of the cytoplasm of the WBC, here we can call them as granulocytes. The granulocytes are of three types are there, that are one is acidophils, basophils, and neutrophils. These are the presence of the cytoplasmic granules are present in the cytoplasm of the WBC, so we can call them as the granulocytes. Next, second one, agranulocytes. Here the absence of A means absenting, absence of the cytoplasmic granules. Then these we can call, this type you can call as agranulocytes. A means absenting granules. That means here in the cytoplasm of the WBC, here the granules are absenting, so that we can call them as agranulocytes. So we can call as absence of cytoplasmic granules in of a WBC. So we can call this as agranulocytes here. Again, the agranulocytes which are presenting, these are classified into two types. One we can call as the monocytes, and the second one is we can call as the lymphocytes, That means here, based on the presence of the cytoplasmic granules or absence or presence of cytoplasmic granules, here these WBC is classified into two types. One is granulocytes and agranulocytes. Here presence of the granules we can call as granulocytes. If the absence of the granules we can call as agranulocytes. So here there are the granulocytes are classified into three types: acidophils, basophils, and neutrophils. And lastly, here the agranulocytes are of two types, that is monocytes and lymphocytes. So that here when coming to this here total WBC, either here a WBC, the WBC either granulocytes or agranulocytes. Here a WBC we can call them as a polymorphonucleosides. WBC we can call them as a polymorphonucleosides. Why we can call them as that means WBC, why WBC is called as polymorphonucleosides? Why you can call them as polymorphonucleosides? Means poly means many, morpho means external, an external, nucleo means nucleus, and sides means the cells. So here poly means many. Here there are 5 types of the WBCs are presenting, such as acidophils, basophils, neutrophils, monocytes, and lymphocytes. So we can call them as poly means many, morpho means external, and nucleus. That means if seeing the nucleus of the white blood cells, we can easily identify the type of the WBCs. That means by seeing this nucleus of the cells, we can easily identify the type of the WBC such as acidophils, basophils, neutrophils, monocytes and lymphocytes. So that here by seeing external means nucleus, by seeing the nucleus of these cells, we can easily identify the type of a WBC, that is a granulocytes or agranulocytes, or we can use them as the acidophils, basophils, neutrophils, monocytes and lymphocytes. Based on these, by seeing the nucleus of these, we can easily identify the type of a WBC, so that we can call them as a polymorphonucleosides. So how these polymorphonucleosides, how we can differentiate, that means how we can able to identify, or otherwise how we can know why you can call them as polymorphonucleosides, that will be discussed in the next class.